Hi everybody, my name is Andrew. I'm Joe's teaching partner. I moderate what we call the workshop part of the class. And what we usually do is, as Joe went through in the sort of forum part of the session, Joe tries to impart some screenwriting techniques, screenwriting structure, things like that. And in the workshop portion, it's really all about your work. So what we have our members do usually is send in work to us every week. Hopefully that keeps you on some sort of deadline, some sort of motivation to keep working, because as many of you know, there's a lot of things get in the way of writing. There's a lot of things that come up, either your life, social life, or your work, your regular job. So having a sort of every week class and sort of deadline, I think helps a lot of people continue moving forward with whatever they're working on. Joe talked about the sort of structure of movies and specifically focused on the King's Speech and sort of Oscar type movies. I want to talk about just generally, I think movies overall are about, at the very core, about some sort of emotion. We tell a story to elicit an emotional reaction from the audience. And so stories all about, in the end, are all a little bit about manipulation. Some filmmakers will obviously be more manipulative than others, or more obviously manipulative than others, but every filmmaker, the act of making a film is inherently somewhat manipulative. So, as we saw in The King's Speech, even the very opening scene, the contrast showing us the guy from the BBC who was a great speaker, who was a very, very eloquent, very, very confident speaker, and then obviously contrasting that with Colin Firth's character, the Duke of York, who was obviously who was terrible at speaking. That in itself is meant to manipulate us to feel a certain way. We're meant to feel sorry for the Duke of York and meant to see how perhaps lacking he is in that specific department of public speaking. And so I'm not sure, what does that have to do with our workshop? Well, in order to elicit the proper reaction that you want to have with your story, it's oftentimes a great idea to have your work read as it's proceeding, so that therefore you can get an idea of what kind of emotions you're getting from your audience. So people will be reading your screenplay and getting an idea of what you're going for. Are you eliciting, is this going to be funny rather than serious? That's an important thing to know as well. Those types of things are what we try to focus on our workshop. We try to focus on how the story is progressing, how the characters are developing, and try to help you round out your screenplay overall in terms of getting the proper reaction, the proper emotion reaction you want from your audience. So having said that, I'm curious if anybody is anybody working on a screenplay or a story, or has the germ of a story and would like to discuss it here. I know there's quite a few people, most of you guys don't know each other, and it might be a little bit difficult, but I wanted to throw it out there and see if anybody wanted to share or talk. All right. Well, I kind of anticipated that. Okay, I'm not sure if this is still on. Hey, Joe, is this still?
Oh yeah.
So in lieu of that, since totally understandable, nobody knows each other here. It's difficult to sort of share your story ideas. I'd like to sort of do an exercise. Hopefully, you guys will be willing to partake in this exercise, especially because it's not your specific stories. But so let's just say I wanted to sort of simulate perhaps what a person coming into our workshop might experience or might try. Once this gets going, I have prepared 3 what we call log lines. So for those of you guys some of you who are maybe not so familiar with movie speech or whatever, log line is sort of a 1-sentence or 2-sentence summary of your basic premise for your movie. So just say I am brand new to the class and I am here to, you guys are all my workshop teammates, my workshop friends, and I've got 3 ideas. So we'll read through the 3 ideas, and maybe you guys can give me some feedback about which one you like better, which one you think is the most promising. These aren't necessarily genius ideas or anything like that, but these are 3 ideas. So the first one, a New York City doorman inherits a large sum of money and must decide whether the new attention from one of the residents is real or just a product of her sudden economic misfortune. So that one reads, I would hope, kind of like a romantic comedy. Number 2, A team of CIA operatives begin to question the loyalty of their boss and must discover the truth when their next assignment requires them to retrieve a piece of information being stored aboard Air Force One. Okay, so that I would read sort of like a high concept action type movie, action espionage type movie. Okay, and number 3. Jack, Sammy, Ethan, and Tom are ready to recreate The Hangover with a weekend of debauchery in Las Vegas, but find themselves in a very different sort of waking nightmare as they are stalked, chased, and terrorized by a mysterious entity that will give Vegas' nickname, Sin City, a whole new meaning. So that one starts off hopefully making it seem like it's going to be a comedy, but then will turn out to be hopefully maybe a horror thriller type movie. So if I'm Joe or Andrew, coming into your class and your workshop. And I've got these 3 ideas. I don't know which one I want to write. These are 3 sort of thoughts that I've had. Obviously very different story ideas. Does anybody have any opinion on which one do you think might make a movie? Which one do you guys think I should write? Which one do you think I should focus the next month or 2 months, 3 months working on, shaping, and completing a screenplay on? Does anybody? And it's not necessarily just whatever strikes you. Does anybody have an opinion? You got the third one?
I would go.
Okay. Is there any specific reason? I thank you for speaking.
It just sounds more interesting than first.
The first 2?
I wouldn't dedicate myself to the first 2.
Okay.
I mean, they're good, but.
No, that's fine. If you think they suck, that's fine. I mean, they can suck. I mean, it's just just an example, so it's perfectly fine. So you like the third one? The third one strikes you as a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any reason that it strikes you as more interesting, other than the fact that you maybe don't respond to the first 2? Is there something about the third one specifically that perhaps you like, that you responded to?
I don't know. I think it just would be a very interesting premise, and you can get some conflict and drama out of it.
Right. Okay.
I know. I personally like the
idea
of the third one.
Well, thank you very much for your input. I mean, I think that we're talking about the third one. Yeah, I think that there's certainly that ability to. Not that the Hangover is. I mentioned The Hangover specifically because it's such a well-known movie now.
Yeah.
It's so popular. So many people have seen it, and so therefore it is a nice jumping-off point. Sorry, did you have something to say?
I was just like all 3 of them the bottom one is a teen slasher horror movie.
Right.
The middle one is your Steven Seagal shoot 'em up military stuff, and the top one could actually be a lot of fun. That could be your Julia Roberts.
Right. Yeah. There's all sort of different. Hopefully, what I've conveyed in these 3 premises is that there is some sort of conflict. There is some sort of you get a basic idea of where the story might go. Obviously, it's very, very basic. It's just one sentence. This bottom one's a very long, round sentence, but it's one sentence, and you hopefully get an idea of where the premise might go. So, does anybody else have any thoughts? Go ahead.
I was going to say on the second one, because maybe just because of the loyalty part, I think there's a lot more of character development there.
Right.
And based on what Joe was saying earlier, with that whole meet point in the middle, that one, it could almost start off, as a action thing, and then at the meet point turn into more of a, the inner desire part.
Right. Well, that's a great point. And I think that every time you have these types of movies about either the military or about the CIA or FBI, there's always these questions of. Oftentimes betrayal is a big part of these types of movies, and I think that kind of movie sets itself up to at a midpoint to really turn. I mean, you can really have a big surprise there, where the movie is all the way maybe heading towards, maybe our boss is selling secrets to to Russia or to China or to whoever, and then it can turn on its head there. So yeah, and there's definitely a lot of potential there for intrigue and for the story. But again, I mean, each story is going to be like I said, it's a vehicle for. I mean, you're trying to convey some type of emotion. The first one, it's going to be about romance. It's going to be about just say this New York City doorman. He's got money all of a sudden. Maybe he moves into the building that he used to work the door for, and there's the person who's there who's all of a sudden moving out because she's lost her fortune, and then there's a question of whether that whatever affections she's showing him are true or just a case of her wanting to keep her station in society. So there's a lot of I think a fair amount of sort of potential to go in all 3 directions. But so just say we were to so that's sort of the idea. So to illustrate as we continue along, I'm in class, so you guys have sort of given me some feedback on my 3 ideas. and just say I decide to go with the third one, the one about these guys in Vegas. And so I have, moving forward, I mean, I have 4 characters that I've started writing about. Just say Jack, Sammy, Ethan, and Tom. But hopefully, what I'm hoping what you can do in the workshop is that you can bring us these characters. These guys are just names. They're just, who knows who they are. I mean, they're nobody. And you want to be able to have the opportunity to hopefully have some idea of who you want them to be and what each person's conflict will be with not only the antagonist, whatever is chasing them around Vegas, but also interpersonally. Because in the end, with a movie about villains and heroes, there's always going to be some distance between the villain and the hero. You're not necessarily going to have them interacting all the time. It's going to be very sort of brief moments where they're fighting each other or sort of antagonizing each other, but most of the time it's going to be between the 4 friends. And the same thing is with the actual movie The Hangover, where you have them being sort of chased around sometimes by the King John character or other people, but really it's about the relationship between the 3 friends looking for the 4th friend. So, as Joe talked about character development, we are also very concerned about doing that in the workshop as well. So, people bring in their characters. People bring in, who they want their stories to be about. What is Joe talked about the Achilles heel or weaknesses, or even if you don't want to get that far, if it's talking about just conflicts interpersonally, that's what we try to focus on as well. It's very simple to talk about each of these things, but pitch me some ideas. I mean, if you guys are trying to help me out, and I'm trying to think of what Jack, Sammy, Ethan, and Tom are what other problems can you guys think of some conflicts that would be ready-made for them to be experiencing interpersonally, as well as in the backdrop is them being hounded and terrorized by this mysterious entity.